Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Homepage, your computer and internet show, and this week a special space age theme. I'm David Onley. We welcome you right across Canada, watching us on both Canadian Learning Television and Cable Pulse 24. We're going to look back on Apollo 13 and its ill-fated mission to the moon 35 years ago this week. Lucky viewers who call or email us with a question will win one of two great prize packs. Today, in keeping with our theme, we have two 10th anniversary editions of the Apollo 13 movie on DVD. That's the Tom Hanks special. Also, we have two copies of Apogee Press 35th anniversary book and two DVDs within the book about the Apollo 13 mission. As well, we'll get to have a copy, each of you, two copies of the book by Cy Liebergott, Apollo EECOM. He's the guy that answered the message when they called down, Houston, we've had a problem. Plus, our first six callers also get copies of Quick Tax software to help you do your taxes. And, of course, each winner also gets a one-year subscription to Digital Journal magazine. So give us a call right now within the GTA. It's 416-872-CP24. That's 2724. Toll free. If they do get over their fear of flying, maybe they will want to go into space, but there might be a problem when they do. In fact, that phrase, Houston, we have a problem, is a famous distress call that 35 years ago this week sent Mission Control in Houston and the world into a frenzy during Apollo 13's flight to the moon. 35 years ago tomorrow, that former Mission Control specialist Cy Liebergott answered that call deep from space. And today, he relives the courageous mission in a webcam interview with our very own Natasha Eloy.
Houston, we have a problem. Those words were never actually spoken by Apollo 13, but 35 years later, the sense of urgency and drama still hasn't diminished.
So we'd like it to stir up your cryo tanks. In addition, have Shaft and Trunnion.
Okay.
Or look at the Comet Bennett if you need it.
Okay. Stand by. Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
Ron Howard tried to be as authentic as possible for artistic license. Crew said, in the past tense, Houston, we've had a problem. But the reason he chose to change the wording, Clint Howard, who portrayed me in the movie, said was it's more dramatic to put it in the present tense.
What was going through your mind when you got the call?
Well, when the crew called down, everybody looked to their data displays on their consoles quickly, and of course I looked at mine and I couldn't believe what I saw, because what it was showing me was that I had lost one of the two oxygen, life-giving oxygen tanks that also fed electrical fuel cells. And the other one was leaking down rapidly, and I lost two of the three fuel cells and all the equipment they fed. And it was just impossible to believe that that's exactly what was going on.
We knew that we were in serious trouble. We didn't know what was wrong, and of course we had no solutions of how to figure out how to get back home.
So then it became a monster problem dropped into my lap that I had to deal with, and nobody else could deal with it but me. I think 46 minutes into the failure, this was my last hour of my shift of all things,
Right.
I told the flight director, Gene Kranz, we better think about getting in a LEM. We've only got we got less than 2 hours of oxygen left in the remaining oxygen tank, and that's the end right there. So the big scramble to turn the LEM on, to activate it so the crew could live in it, was heroic.
We were looking at crises that had never been programmed or trained for before. We looked at a lot of failures, but not multiple failures like we were experiencing. And they were able to sit down, analyze the situation, and determine the best course of action for a whole series of things.
Absolutely amazing. And certainly Apollo 13 has fascinated people for years. It's been the inspiration for many books, including my own, and DVDs. Author Rob Godwin, creator of the NASA Mission Report series, including this one on Apollo 13, now available in chapters, by the way, joins me today, coinciding with the 35th anniversary. Rob, always great to have you with us on the show. Hard to believe. I mean, I believe it's actually 35 years ago as of
today was the explosion. Yep.
The explosion occurred.
Yeah, April 13th,
Apollo 13 that took off at 1:13, and
that's right,
all the other 13s that were, well, 13:13.
Yeah, they
Apollo
took off at 13:13 Central Time. They were a couple of 100,000 miles out, 55 hours into the mission.
Had it occurred during Apollo 8 on its flight to the moon, they all would have died.
Actually, it almost happened on Apollo 11, which is not something that's very well reported. They actually had a similar anomaly on an oxygen tank on Apollo 11, which they just dismissed and figured the problem was solved.
Ooh.
But on 13, of course, we had the disaster. This model I brought here, just to show you a little bit about it. This is where the crew would sit, and these are the oxygen tanks. These two tanks right here. And the explosion occurred in this tank right there. These three gray things at the top are actually the fuel cells that provided all the electricity for the spacecraft.
No wonder they were concerned that the explosion may have damaged the heat shield, because that heat shield's just, it's not far away.
Well, when this tank blew, it took out two of these three power supplies, and the third one was damaged. But as you pointed out, when the pressure built up and this whole side blew off, it could have sent the pressure right up the center of this module here and blown that right off. And, of course, that would have been game over.
Yeah, they would have been.
But the panel hit the antenna down the bottom here, which shorted out communications to the ground, and they were incredibly lucky.
The movie, Apollo 13, and two people today also get a copy of that, along with your book. I mean, there's a franticness to it. And, I mean, it really was hairy. It was certainly the biggest crisis NASA had dealt with up to that time. Of course, allowing for the fact the Apollo 1 fire had actually happened on the ground. But, they weren't sure they could bring them back. If it had happened earlier, they probably wouldn't have survived, because they wouldn't have had enough oxygen and so forth and electricity to get back. If it had happened later, the lunar module, the lander module, would have been down on the moon, and they wouldn't have been able to use that as a lifeboat. I mean,
so timing was everything. It had to happen when it did, the way it did. Otherwise, they wouldn't have survived.
Now, you helped and coordinated the linking up with Cy Liebergott, and we appreciate that very much. But tell us about the whole series of books, because they now are available, as I mentioned, at Chapters. Tell us about this.
Well, there's a series now. We've done all the Apollo missions, and we're moving into shuttles and Mercury and Gemini missions. We've been doing this now for about 8 years, and NASA, of course, are cooperating with us all the time, and we're actually doing the official space station book for NASA next year.
And if you've got an extra $50,000 laying around, you can go to a dinner with Rob coming up later this summer. Tell us about that.
That's right. The Apollo 13 35th anniversary dinner is in Seattle at the Museum of Flight, and it's actually in June for some reason. I'm not sure why they're not doing it this week. But, they're charging $50,000 a table, and they've sold them all.
Sold every single one.
They've sold them all. They've got the cast of the movie coming, as well as the crew. Well, but it's in honor of the flight controllers. It's actually in honor of this gentleman here, Cy Liebergott, who was, the guy who saved their skin by making the right call at the right moment.
Yeah. Oh, that's what the whole space program is all about, though. Those hard calls, right call at the right moment.
Having the right guy in the right place. This is a remarkable book. Cy actually had a very tough childhood.
Yeah.
And, his father was chased by gangsters, and they blew up his car at one point in the 20s.
So what's a ship blowing up in space? Yeah. He's Mr. Cool.
When the whole room turned to Cy and said, what do we do? What do we do?
Yeah.
He was cool enough to handle it, and he knew what to do.
Well, Rob, thanks so very much, and
thanks,
we'll look forward to your next visit and more information on the space program.
Thank you.
And the website, we should mention, apogeebooks.com.
apogeebooks.com.
Okay, and we've put that up, and it'll be at our site at the end of the program. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks.